Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. What a day, man.
What a day.
What a day.
What a day to be recording this.
What a day to be recording this. This is just so everybody knows, because this will come out at some point next week, but Utes revealed this morning, and so it has been a nice, calm day full of nothing but positivity, and nobody has had...
No takes.
Yeah,
Weird. I was expecting a lot of takes.
And there's been no takes. Everyone has just been super positive on Twitter and all just beautiful comments. Just always an interesting day in the NFT space. That's, I think, part of why I love it, to be honest, is that there's always something going on. No matter what, whether it's positive, negative, whatever, there's always something interesting going on. And so it's kind of a nice distraction from life at times. So,
absolutely.
It's... So, you take the good and the bad with it, but you always got to love the space. So
absolutely. Amen, brother.
But yeah, man, hey, so welcome to the Marc Colcer podcast. We've been chatting already for the last hour or so. We just got some donuts. We just got some espresso,
donuts.
So I'm feeling good. But yeah, to get started, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yo, appreciate you having us on. My name is Divide. I am the co-founder and project lead for Sentries. And that's what I do. This is my passion. I found Web3 like a little over a year ago. Came in through Ethereum and then came over to Solana based on one of our co-founders, 0x Nalik, who's the CTO of Sentries, and just been on just the craziest ride since then.
There we go. So, the reason why I wanted to have you guys on is because you guys took a very different approach with your project. A lot of projects that I have on are PFP projects. You guys are more utility-based. We're going to get into that in a second, but before we get into all of that, can you kind of explain a little bit more of your background? How did you, or what were you doing prior to getting into NFTs?
Yeah, man. So I grew up in the Midwest. Always wanted to get the hell out of there because that just wasn't the place for me. Always kind of a bit of an outcast, and just kept moving west until I ran out of land in the U.S. And so live out in the Bay Area now. And I'm a professional marketer, failed attorney, and somewhat successful project founder in the Web3 space right now. There we
go. And so how did you eventually get into NFTs?
So I guess the other thing I should say is I'm a musician as well. So I toured with a band for a number of years. And I always saw like NFTs were always like a bit on periphery because I saw it as an opportunity to give more back to the creator, right? Cut out all of the middlemen. And so that was like kind of why I stumbled into it. And actually the first project that I found was a project called Obits on Ethereum. And they were very focused on like heavy metal, punk, like street culture. And like, that's what drew me into that project. I was like, okay, this is something that is like a part of my background and my life, and it combines this whole new technology. And so like that was like what made me like make the dive, set up the MetaMask, get the Ether, and go from there.
There we go. So are you into Liberty Square at all? I feel like that's right up your alley then.
Oh, dude, 100%. So one of the highlights for me as a founder was, so we minted out on Blocksmith in August of this year. And we ran a space for, 12 hours or something that day. And Liberty came on Secret, and I had a conversation. It was just me AMAing Secret for an hour. But like one of the things that I felt this sort of like kindred spirit with is this, he mentioned like his reaction to them selling out was like his initial reaction was like, fuck you. Like, fuck you to everybody that doubted me, that told me like I wasn't going to make it. And I was like, that hit hard because I felt the same way, right? Like everybody told me our art's trash, like y'all are never going to make it, too many pieces, not enough marketing, like just doubted us the whole fucking time, man. And like to see like, it was a little scary because fucking Blocksmith went down, and so I didn't get to watch the counter. And so I'm just texting with the devs. I'm like, yo, just tell me when this is over. Tell me when that 100% bar is there. And so like it was like just a feeling that really made me sort of like believe in myself and believe in the power of my co-founders and what we can do in this space in a way that like I've never had a project on my own. I've always enabled other people to be successful and try to be the greatest version of themselves. And there was so much of me in this. And so like, just like that resonance of like, you know, it feels like you get to join a little club.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So before we get further into this, I do want to just tell everybody, so this episode is brought to you guys by Hey Wallet. So if you guys are doing anything really cool to promote the podcast episode, we've had people create merch. We've had people that have made really cool threads. We've had people that have clipped the video and posted that. So if you guys are doing anything really creative to promote the podcast episode, and I'm talking more than just a retweet, okay? But if you guys are doing something really creative, we're going to be paying attention to that, and we're going to be sending some of you guys Solana through Hey Wallet. And that's where we just have to know your wallet address, or not your wallet address. We just have to know your Twitter username, even easier. And then you guys set up an account on Hey Wallet, super easy. And then boom, you link your Twitter, and automatically that Solana is in there for you. So if you guys are doing something really creative, we're going to be paying attention to it. And so yeah, go and do something really creative with this podcast episode. But yeah, so with that, how did you guys come up with the original idea for Sentries?
Yeah, great question. So we got a lot of big brains in the Sentries community, so definitely y'all should take advantage of that. We got some great thread writers, like we got some great artists, like put that work in and definitely like get the quality, right? That's what we need more of, right? We want that quality shit. So Sentries was actually pretty organic. So my co-founder, 0x Nalik, is just like an incredible Rust developer. And the way that he's been in crypto since 2013, he survived Mt. Gox, he survived Bitfinex, and what he does is he makes his living market making, arbitrage, liquidation, both through centralized exchanges and on chain. And when you're doing that shit, speed matters, right? And so that's how he understood how to set up RPC nodes, set up and like build the software to run them at a really performant level. And so what we thought was like, hey, here's an opportunity for us to build the infrastructure, because like Sentries is a long bet on Solana, right? Like we are building infrastructure on Solana. We'll expand chains, like we'll be on Sui, we'll be on some other things, but like Solana's our big bet. And so we want to build that like base layer, and we want to give people the picks and shovels to then go out and build their projects. And so this is really just what we saw as an opportunity to, one, use the mint funds. We use 80% of the mint funds to set up our validator. So those haven't gone anywhere. It's like in a high interest savings account. And then two, as the space grows, if we are one of the top infrastructure providers and everybody needs to run the blockchain that's building dApps and protocols and NFT projects, then that's a huge opportunity, a huge business for us. And so it was really kind of this natural fit between like a real way to interact and give back to the community, as well as sort of build that infrastructure that's gonna make this thing run.
That's really cool. I like that. So, okay, so let's talk about kind of the financial aspect of that there for a sec. So, obviously, you guys put a ton of your mint funds into the validators and whatnot, and so the remaining funds that you guys have, I'm sure obviously some of that's going to paying the team, some of it's going to yada, yada, yada. What are you guys doing in order to bring in more revenue so that you can continue to sustain the business? Because obviously you guys weren't like a massive like 5 SOL mint or anything like that. You guys were what, 1 SOL you said?
1 SOL, yep.
1 SOL, you had 8,000 pieces?
Yep.
So 8,000 SOL gets brought in. So yeah, what are you guys doing to make sure that you guys continue to pay yourselves?
Yeah, man. So, well, I mean, first of all, I keep a Web 2 job. And, you know, I really view that for right now as my VC, right? And like, that's why I'm not doxxed. Like, that's why, you know, my face is covered up here today, because like I put money into Sentries every month. So does 0x Nalik, because it's not, you know, we're a startup business, right? You don't make a profit in 3 months. And so, you know, that's a big part of it. But what we want to do, and the way that we'll grow the revenue and we'll grow the profitability, is by signing clients, right? And so my background is actually in like business to business marketing, selling to other businesses. And like, that's exactly what we're doing. So the way that we make money is by running infrastructure on behalf of other projects. So like we run the validator for ThugDAO from Thugbirds. We run sniper bots for Kaizoku Mechanics and Young Money. We have a big announcement coming up on a big infrastructure provider that I was hoping that I was going to be able to drop on the show, but I can't. So folks will just have to wait 2 weeks and we'll have more information there. But, really what it comes down to now is us going out there, getting in front of the right people and being able to punch up and compete with, there are other infrastructure providers out there, right? But there are very few that are native to the NFT community. And if we want to believe in a decentralized or at least a permissionless future, then one company can't run all the nodes, can't run all the validators. And we believe that we can be one of the top because we're among the best.
There we go. I like that energy. So, okay, so I know a lot of people who are watching this. I think when I first heard of Sentries, I was like, I'm not great on the technical aspect of things. Like I would say my technical knowledge in the space has grown in the time period that I've been doing the podcast and whatnot. Because to be honest, if I didn't know a lot here, my job would be a lot harder. So I had to learn. I had to educate myself. And so, but I do know there's a lot of people who are probably watching this that may not completely understand validators, may not completely understand RPC nodes and things like that. So can you kind of give people, break it down in English, make it super simple for people, validators for dummies, RPC nodes for dummies, just like those books we used to read back in the day?
Yeah, no, it's good because I'm a dummy. And so like, in order to understand it, I got to be able to break it down. So I think about it in two ways. I think there's two things to understand. Like one, like we're still using the internet, which is a series of physical cables. They run underneath the ground. To run the blockchain, you need two servers. One is an RPC and one's a validator. The RPC sends transactions to the validator, and then the validators participate in what's called consensus, and they vote. And they say like, okay, we just got a batch of transactions in, a block of transactions. Are these legitimate transactions? And if so, then we write it to the blockchain. And in exchange for doing that, you get about 6% a year, which is roughly the inflation rate of Solana, the token. And so it's really like a high interest savings account as an incentive to participate in this consensus mechanism. And so when you're like spamming mint on like whatever the next hype release is, those transactions are going to an RPC node and then they're going to a validator to be voted on effectively. And so you get rewarded from the validator and you need RPCs to run the blockchain.
Hey, that makes it a lot more simple. So, I feel like it's helpful to know that kind of stuff because I think a lot of times we hear these terms and I think a lot of people just kind of nod their head and kind of go, like I was literally watching a YouTube video of somebody talking about Sentries, and I believe one of the guys on the podcast knew how to explain it and everything like that, and the other two were kind of like, somewhat. So yeah, it definitely helps to be able to explain a little bit further and all of that. So okay. In order to pull off something like this, obviously there's a lot of like technical knowledge that goes into all of this. So can you talk about kind of the background of some of the different team members and how you guys put together the team that's able to carry out all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I always have to start by showing all the love to my co-founder, 0x Nalik. He's just like, not only is he an amazing dev, but he's just an amazing human being. And like, he's actually younger than me. I'm very much I'm not even a crypto boomer. Like I'm a fucking geriatric, like compared to most of these people. And like Nalik is younger than me and I would consider him like a mentor. Like he's been like my crypto, like Sherpa or whatever, just like leading you through. We actually met a little bit over a year ago in an alpha Discord, and there was 12 of us in there and he just happened to be one of them. And, you just like, real recognize real, like recognize like kind of thing. And so we just hit it off and started, having these conversations around the opportunities to build something together because we're both Web 2 operators. Like I worked in startups before I worked at like really large tech companies that like I do now. And he's only ever worked in startups. And so like there's a shared knowledge and a shared experience there that really helps you build in this space. And so what the whole idea of Sentries really is to like unlock his incredible talents and abilities from the blockchain perspective, because he sees the future. We just needed the funds in order to make him be able to go and run hard. So that's really, if it wasn't for him, it's hard to imagine where this project would be. And then, in addition to that, there's Dave, who's one of the co-founders, advisor now. And Dave was building a blockchain game, and he really handled all of the art and all the traits. We have 2,000 fucking traits in the collection, which let me tell you was a nightmare to generate the fucking JSON file. But you know, and so it was really just kind of this. Everybody played their role, right? And if you can bring talented professionals together that know how to get shit done and just let them do what they're good at, then you have an opportunity to build something great. You're not guaranteed shit, but you're way better off because there's this sort of like complementary skill set versus like we're a bunch of devs and maybe we don't know how to market, or we're a bunch of marketers, but we don't really have the ability to know if we're getting ourselves into a rough spot from the development standpoint. And so those two were critical. Also got to shout out Bird, who's one of our co-founders, as well as Stuff A Lot Kevin, who is our community manager. So he's been a part of the Communa 3 team for many years. He was really critical, certainly critical to getting us to mint, but obviously in the post-mint world as well. And then we have 3 developers on the back end. We have like 2 back end devs and a UI UX guy. They're out of Breakpoint right now. Nobody's going to hear this before then, but maybe you'll have seen them out there. So that's really kind of like the core team. And then like we've really always been lucky to have great like ambassadors. And so, you know, right now, the Blap is our head of community investor relations. We have some great ambassadors with Grim. Grim, shout out. Bear Marketer, shout out Chainsy. Name Games helps us out. Riku helps us out. Dallas helps us out. Before Mint, Dr. Solana. Blockchain KR, Spoonicus, like, man, you know, I'm probably forgetting somebody. I'm gonna feel bad about it, but it's like, dude, it takes a village. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it really does, and it's always cool to me. I love hearing kind of how teams come to be, and just, you know, collectively how much you know, talent they bring to the table, and what they each individually bring to the table, and you know, just all of that. And so we were talking about this before we started the podcast, but how some of the team is in Portugal right now, and then you're here, and it's like, I love to hear that, because to me it's like, it's not like you said to me, hey, let's wait till after Lisbon, and like then, you know, blah blah. You were like, okay, I'll come out to LA. Let's do this. And then they're in Portugal getting that done. I'm like, see, that's the sort of energy that I like to see, and the kind of drive that I like to see within a team. So, but yeah, so can you talk about like how difficult it is to set up and maintain an RPC node, and then what the benefits would be for an average user who's might gain by utilizing an RPC node?
Yeah, man. So you look from a technical perspective, you know, there's there are providers out there that do this as like a managed service. And as far as like an individual person with a personal PC, like set or Mac or whatever setting up, I think you can do it. I'm not the right person to talk about this, to be honest, but we'll ask 0x Nalik in the future here. But what really matters is that like milliseconds matter, right? And so it's not just about setting it up. It's about how you run the software that controls the hardware, right? And so like, let's say you're doing a liquidation, right, on Mango. I don't know if that's the best example anymore, but like one person gets that fee, right? And so second place you get 0, right? And that's like it's like a game of milliseconds. And so where we differentiate, and actually I just tweeted this out from the Sentries account, but we this infrastructure provider StackPath, they just did a speed test, and we were among the fastest. I think we were in like second place, something like that. And it's like, you know, for let's say you're Magic Eden, let's say you're OpenSea, right, where you got to make a ton of calls, and or like your Star Atlas, and like you have 10,000 users now, but you're going to have 10 million in the future. Well, if your nodes are slow, then your gameplay sucks, and then nobody's going to use your game, and you're going to go out of business, right? And so what matters at the end of the day is the user experience. And so that's what's hard. Like setting up the stuff is not crazy complicated, says the guy who's never set up a server before, but it's like it actually is like the small shit that really matters here.
So, I guess for like the average person who would be using an RPC node, they'd most likely be using it for something like botting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess so the example, if I'm making sure I understand it completely, the example here would be if like, let's say 2 people each have a bot set up, and the bot is meant to grab any NFT that falls below 70 Solana,
yep.
right? And if one RPC node is faster than the other RPC node, they're going to be the faster RPC node is going to be the one that gets that item.
Straight up, it's a race, right? And the other thing to think about too is like, it doesn't have to be like, we think about, okay, mint goes live, we got to spam the transactions, right? Because you don't know where the RPC node is that you're using versus the validator, right? Like one of the best scenarios is like your RPC node is physically on top of your validator in the same data center, because then it doesn't have to travel that far. So you don't have to spam a billion transactions. And so it's not only about setting it up. Like, so that's part of what we do. But then the other part of it is like the optimization, right? It's what is the path? Where should I spin up the server? Where's the validator? And so there's a concentration of validators, I believe, in Amsterdam right now. And so like, that's a challenge for us as an ecosystem to like diversify away, right? And so that's part of what, back to 0x now, like, dude, so he came and visited with me in the Bay Area. Since he left like 2 months ago, he's been building servers. Like he was in South Africa, he was in Dubai, and like he was building the fucking servers before he went out to Breakpoint. Because we have hands, like, we don't white label shit. We have our hands on the hardware. We go out and get that for you. We go out and set it up for you. And I think that that's a real differentiator as well.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So to make sure I have that correct too, so you guys are setting up some of these for other projects too?
Yeah. So that's like a big part of the growth of our business. So for example, like right now, say you need a dedicated RPC node because like you just have a lot of like transactions that you have to handle. Like we manage it. It's $1,400 a month. Let's say you want us to run your validator for you, right? So like I said, we run the validator for ThugDAO, right? $700 a month. And so like it's like sort of, we have the concept of like monthly recurring revenue or annually recurring revenue because we're selling services and software to other businesses in addition to running our own software and hardware. So we run our own validator, we run our own RPC nodes, and that's what our community can take advantage of.
Okay, so hypothetically speaking, let's say 0% royalty stays here for the foreseeable future. You guys will essentially be able to continue to run your business by essentially bringing on more clients where you guys are having this monthly revenue that's coming in, and then therefore able to run the business.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, so I look at us more as like, it's like a seed stage investment in many ways, right? Like we're not using the mint funds to like the royalties have been nice because we've been able to use that to give back to the community. So we've been able to do things like contests and giveaways and raffles and go out to Breakpoint and print merch and, but it's not a core part of what we're doing. Now, is it nice to have royalties to bridge the gap from mint day until we have, say, 10K in monthly recurring revenue? Yeah, that's fucking sweet. And we still have we made a good chunk off royalties, don't get me wrong. But that's never, like when we were modeling our financials, we didn't even model in the royalties, right? Because it's just so variable anyway. And it's so not critical to what we're doing as a project. Now, I'd love to get 3.33% royalties again, but if we don't, it just makes it that so we have to go harder and sign faster.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So if somebody's debating buying, let's say they have some Sentries, let's say they're debating buying more, let's say there's somebody who's watching this who doesn't have any Sentries, can you explain why they benefit from all of this? Like, let's say you guys get to a point where you're bringing in 100K revenue a month, $1 million a month, all of that. How does that benefit the holder? And then is there certain things that you guys want to do as you bring in more revenue, anything like that?
Yeah, 100%. So like the way to think about it is like we share the rewards from the profitable operations of our business back with our holders. And we do that in the form of SOL. Like we don't have a token. I'm not saying we won't ever have any sort of token or fungible token, but we're an infrastructure company on the Solana blockchain. We deal in SOL, right? And so there's really sort of two pools of rewards. 75% of the rewards go to people who stake Sentries. You don't have to do anything else other than go to staking.sentries.io, and the rewards are pro rata. So the more Sentries you have staked, the longer you have them staked for, the more you're going to earn, right? So that's why you would want to stack multiple Sentries. 25% of that is based on is staking those Sentries and then putting SOL in our validator. So I think right now we have about 6,000 self-staked Solana in our validator. So we took half of our royalties and we put them in the validator along with about 5,000 SOL from our mint. And so like that's the Sentries project's money, right? But on top of that, we have about 150,000 SOL that's delegated to our validator from Marinade, from other holders, from other people. And so right now we don't charge a commission on that. We'll never charge Sentry holders a commission on that, but we will charge other people a commission rate in the future, somewhere on the order of like 1 to 3%. And so if you stake SOL in our validator, that opens up that extra 25% of reward. So it's like you don't have to stake anything. People get this wrong all the time. Like, you don't have to stake any SOL in our validator to earn. All you got to do is stake your Sentries. But if you want more than that 75%, if you want to capture 100% of the rewards, then you want to stake as much SOL in our validator as possible, because those rewards will get shared back pro rata as well to people who stake SOL in our validator.
Is there like a golden number? Like, if somebody's sitting here and they're like, you're like, hey, if you have this amount, if you're staking this amount, you own this many Sentries, you've basically like completely optimized your situation here. Is there a number like that?
It's a good question. So I want to answer it in two ways. One, like, as part of our roadmap in the future, we will introduce more gamification, potentially art upgrades, cosmetics, but at the same time, like, the space moves so fast that, we will do this, but we don't necessarily know what that looks like today, right? Like, it's like the art upgrade meta was there for a couple of weeks, but now it's kind of like run its course. And so it's like, we don't want to run down any path. We want to do what's right in the community. We also don't want to use our community as exit liquidity, right? So like we have these ideas for gamification, and we will very likely roll those out, but we want to make sure that it fits what the market wants. The other part of that, though, is we really think it's important to increase the intrinsic value of the Sentries PFP. So that's why we continue to invest more of our own SOL. So the SOL that we'll take from commissions when we turn those on in 2023 will get reinvested and staked back into the validator, and it'll increase the backing of every Sentry. So right now, one Sentry, let's say everything went to hell and we were like, okay, we're just going to liquidate this. Like, every person that held a Sentry would get about 0.74, 0.75 SOL per Sentry, right? And so, which is like, so we're trying to limit the downside risk, right? Imagine if you minted for one SOL, I don't know what the current price is, but we've never fallen below mint, and we're backed by 0.75 SOL. But as that goes up over time, then that helps. It de-risks what people are doing, and it makes the project more valuable. And so like, that's how there's no optimal sort of configuration right now. But as we roll out the gamification, as we share more about sort of the rules of engagement, then 100% there will be.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about the PFP aspect of it, right? So you guys do have an NFT that people receive. And so how did you guys come up with the art? What was your thought process kind of behind all of that?
Yeah, so all shouts out to Dave R. He was sort of the head of that whole process. And what he was looking to do was, so like, he loves gaming. And so, he was sort of looking at these things. He didn't want to do humans, and he didn't want to do animals, and because he wanted to do something a little bit different. And so he was very inspired by like Tron. If anybody knows, there's like an old movie from the 80s, and then there's a newer one from like the 2010s. And like, the whole idea of it is like, you're in this digital world, and the computer programs are like humanized. They're like anthropomorphized. And so kind of the same idea is like, Sentries are the beings that run the blockchain, right? They protect the network. They keep their eyes out for the transactions so that they can pass them to the validator. And so it's like some combination of Tron meets Mega Man meets like these sort of like virtual beings and just like the blockchain personified. And that's like, again, like our validator, the load is sort of this, that's like the center of their universe, right? So the Sentries are in service to the load to protect the network, to scale it over time.
That makes sense. So in a perfect world, like, where do you want to see the project a year from now, 2 years? I mean, I'm not even gonna speculate 2 years from now. That's like 20 billion years in this space. But even in the next like 6 months, like where do you want to see the project? What would you view as a success?
Yeah, man. So I think the first thing for us is getting to like basically break even profitability. And we publish our financials. So if anybody wants to check out where we're at right now, we'll have the October's numbers out pretty soon here. September, we have everything we spent from pre-mint up through September. It's out there. It's on Twitter. It's in the Discord. Like we're not scared of showing people where our money is going. And so like we want to get to about 10 to 20,000 MRR, monthly recurring revenue, to get us to a place where like the business can just sustain itself. We can pay everybody's salaries and we can do, some marketing and things like that. So like that's, but I feel like that's part one. Part two is we want to take advantage and be one of the largest providers in the space, right? And that's going to take time because number one, there aren't a ton of projects out there right now that need a ton of nodes, right? Like the projects that need massive amounts of nodes are Star Atlas, Magic Eden, Drift, like big protocols. But over time, as we onboard more developers, that's the other piece of this is like, how can we help bring more developers into the ecosystem? Because those are potentially our future customers as well. And so a big thing for us is reaching that level of profitability, but then being able to help people get on board and use this infrastructure in a way that's cheaper than it is today because it's too expensive. Like, everybody was using Genesis Go's free RPC node and they're decommissioning it. And so all of a sudden you go from paying $0 a month to you can get something similar from Sentries for $250 a month. But if you need more than that, the price just keeps going up. And it's really hard and not sustainable for most projects, especially NFT projects, to be able to pay that cost every month when they don't have recurring revenue. And so a big part of what we're doing right now and that we're working on is making infrastructure cheaper and basically building solutions that allow for people to not have to invest so much. It's not going to be free, right? There's a reason that Genesis Go decommissioned the free RPC node, but it's going to be cheaper than it is today. And that's back to my point of like, we need to onboard developers. We don't have there's a lot of great developers on Solana, but we need 10x more.
So you bring up onboarding there for a second. So I always find that to be interesting because, when you talk about projects that are kind of like B2B businesses, right? I always wonder, like, how are you finding those people, right? Because there are a lot of projects in the space. I don't want to say we're trying to do something similar to you guys, but like, it is something where you especially when you're talking about like projects that are doing like digital like art agencies, and so they're creating art for other projects and things like that, or somebody who's running like they're helping projects with Discord or yada yada yada.
Yep.
There's a lot of projects who are doing similar things, right? And there might be another project that comes out soon that's doing RPC nodes and validators and whatnot. Yep. So how do you guys kind of differentiate yourself, and then how do you find these potential people to onboard them into the space, and then therefore they become a client of yours?
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, so I guess like I go back to first principles and I think like, how can you compete as a business, right? Like you can compete on price, you can compete on quality, and you can compete on speed, right? And I think, and you can't do all of it, right? And so, right now, I think the competition is about price, number one, because that's what people really care about, and speed, like how fast they can get up and going. But it's only true right now because we're subscale, right? Because like your DGen CoinFlip DGen CoinFlip probably has a lot of users, but like the average like gambling game, like maybe they have 1,000 users monthly. When you get to 10,000 users or 100,000 users, then all of a sudden like that quality piece comes good. That optimization piece becomes really critical. And so, I think you need to understand as a business, I'm personally obsessed with my customers and not my competition. And so when I go out and we think about who are our potential customers, it's not only the people that are already at scale, but the opportunity is just so massive because anybody that builds on the blockchain, whatever you do, you're gonna have to run the infrastructure on the blockchain. And so if we can come in and say, this is really high quality at a really competitive price, and then I think that that's a huge competitive differentiator. On top of that, like we are in this space, we are of this space, we were born of this space. And so like, that's where I think in the future, we'll have many of our clients and customers that are holders in our NFT project because it benefits them to do that, right? They earn those rewards back. It's effectively a discount. And so I think that there's some unique things about the sort of structure and setup that have set us apart. And then also like being as fast as possible to market and moving quickly and getting into those discussions with those businesses.
So, okay, so you mentioned how there's kind of like some gamified aspects of your project. Do you guys have any other plans for any other gamified aspects of your project? And if so, what would some of those be?
Yeah, so I think like it's important to talk about like why we wanted to gamify first, and the reason is that we believe that it's really important that the folks that are building on this blockchain are participating in the layer one, are participating in the consensus, that they're touching the blockchain, because if not, then we're just going to end up back in Web 2 where all of this shit is an afterthought. AWS controls everything, and if AWS goes down, then 60% of the internet is gone or whatever, right? And so, but also, we've been talking, and I simplified validators and RPC nodes as much as I could, but pictures make shit a lot easier to understand, right? And so this was the idea of where, like, how do we sort of end around to get people to participate at the layer one, even if they're not interested in that, by gamifying it. And so, the first part of the gamification will really be, like, as I mentioned, like around the PFP. And so, like, there will be incentives and changes that can be made to the PFP that incentivize people to stake SOL in our validator. And by the way, there's been numerous people in our community who have been like, hey man, honestly, like, making 6% on my SOL every year, like, I just keep it in, and it's your money. You can take it in and put it out whenever you want. And it's like, you're getting more SOL, and they wouldn't have done that with like liquid staking of Marinade, right? Because it's just like a boring like coin, right? And so when you put pictures and you make it more fun, it's easier to understand, it's easier to engage. But the other part of that is we want to be able to enable other projects to do this as well, right? And so, like, setting the standard and trying to innovate is really important to us because we want projects to adopt the things that we're doing. So, like, one thing I do want to mention here is, a big part of why Sentries was able to sort of take off at a time when the market was in a really bad spot is there was another NFT project from another infrastructure company, and there was a lot of like FUD about their mint, right? Around influencers dumping on communities, and sort of people had a bad experience in that. And so that sort of led us to take a step back and say, well, we're from Web 2 originally, and like whenever you get stock or options, those things vest. Whenever you participate in a seed round in a Web 3 company, those things vest. Why don't we have vesting for NFTs? And so so we partnered with Cardinal Labs, we partnered with Dialect, and we partnered with Bifrost, and we created sort of like mechanism by which we could allow people, investors that wanted to get larger token allocations, to buy in. And then those tokens vested over the course of 30 days, right? And so you'd get it's the number of tokens that you minted divided by 30. You get that many per day, and and then you can trade those. And what it did is it allowed those people, you need some of those whales, right? Like we sold out our pre-mint round, 2,000 tokens, 1 SOL each. We sold that thing out in like 8 minutes. And but all those people knew what they were signing up for. They didn't get their NFTs immediately. They had to wait 30 days. Maybe they got 1 a day or 2 a day. And we started to see more projects do this, not necessarily because of us, but partially. And so, like, we want to try to implement some of these best practices because we want other people to innovate here as well. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So, one of the questions one of your community members had, and I want some clarification on this because I don't completely understand everything going on with it. But they said the staking protocol currently is not stable, the NFT. Will improvements be made on this in the near future? So can you explain kind of what the issue is that they're talking about, and then I guess the answer to their question?
Yeah, 100%. So just to be clear, so we use the Cardinal staking protocol. and it's non-custodial. That means that the NFT stays in your wallet. Liberty, I believe, uses Cardinal as well, or something similar, where like you open your wallet and you can see, hey, I got my squirrel. It says staked kind of across the NFT, and so we don't control the protocol. But we built the user interface, right? We thought we could build a nicer, cleaner user interface that would allow people to understand, I got this many Sentries staked, this is the rewards that I'm earning, here's the backing per Sentry. And so there was an issue with one of the RPC nodes, and we just pushed a fix to that 2 days ago. Then for folks that, this is like a bit technical, but there was a large infrastructure provider called Hetzner. They shut down all Solana validators. And so we pushed the fix. Everything was good. Then the Hetzner thing happened, took it back down again. But as of now, everything is fixed. Everything is faster. There was never any loss of data, never any loss of rewards. And there's also elements that are beyond our control, such as like folks that have slower internet or are using VPNs or are located in parts of the world where they're really far away from the validator or from the server. And so we're going to continue to improve and make that better. But you can go unstake your Sentries right now. There's no issues. If there is, open a ticket in the Discord and we got you.
There we go. That's a great answer. Like to hear that. And so, I mean, you've basically, I was going to ask you the question of, is the project profitable? But you did chat about that earlier. I would say, do you have any thoughts on the current royalty situation? And I know obviously you said earlier you guys didn't even really plan for the royalties, but do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have in a perfect world, what is your current royalty percentage?
So we were on the high side. We were at 7%. And, my thought on this is that I understand why we're in the place that we're in. What I wish in hindsight, is that like, I think it's hard to unring a bell. Like, I think it's hard to speed run to 0% and then sort of like rebound from there, because it's hard for folks to go from paying something to nothing back to something, even if that something is less than the pre-something, right? And so what I would have wished is that there was like more time spent before these switches were just flipped, right? And to think about the downstream implications or like the marginal NFT project. Like we focus a lot on either the big projects or the rugs, right? But like there's a lot of projects in the middle there that aren't, that don't have 6 figures in secondary trading volume and are actually trying to build legitimate businesses for whom these royalties are critical. Back to where we started this conversation too, like as a musician, as an artist, like I believe so deeply in making sure that those people are compensated in perpetuity for their work. And I think that the blockchain is one of the best ways that we can do it. And so like, I do have confidence and hope that we'll get back to a royalties driven ecosystem, but that also, we can be more thoughtful about it and find a place there's more of an equilibrium where traders aren't alienated because they are flipping, a blue chip NFT and paying a massive dollar amount to do so, while also that there's a sustainability and a revenue stream from day one for projects to bridge the gap as they actually build technology, because technology is built in weeks and months and years, not in hours and days. And so like I want us to get back to a place where we have more sustainability in the ecosystem, but we can also protect communities, holders, and traders as well.
So I don't know if I've ever actually said this previously, but the way I look at royalties is I feel like one of the issues in it is also a UI experience. And what I mean by that is like, okay, for example, my phone just buzzed and I just got a notification that I just sold something on eBay, right? And so I collect sports trading cards. And so I buy and sell them and whatnot. And so one of mine just sold right around $100, right? My issue is, and this is actually an issue that I could talk to eBay about, is that I sold this for $100. I do not receive $100, right? They actually charge people complain about royalties in Solana. Boy, you should hear what eBay charges for a card there. But basically, I'm probably going to end up getting it back around $80, right?
Yep.
in my mind, I wish they just told me that my card sold for $80. Like, don't tell me it sold for $100 because I'm not receiving $100, right? So I think inherently one of the issues with NFTs is that when we list it, let's just use 100 as a easy number. If I list it at 100 Solana and it sells, I want 100 Solana to come back into my wallet. That's what I listed it at. That's what I want back, right? When you buy something anywhere in the world, I bought shoes earlier today. I pay taxes on that, and that's part of the deal, right? Yep. I live in California. Sales tax is a little higher. Like, that's something I have to deal with, right? And so the way I look at it is from a user experience, it would be much easier if I went on Magic Eden and I would listed my NFT for 100 Sol, but then when it appears on the marketplace, it appears on there for, let's say, 103.33, right? And so therefore the royalty percentage is built into that. So I'm going to get back 100 no matter what. But then if let's say that's the floor, then the floor would show up as 103.
Right.
And so that's the way that I look at it is, if we do it that way, then the buyer who comes in looks at it of like, I'm spending 103 no matter what. The seller goes, I'm getting 100 no matter what. So neither party really even sees the percentage there. And I feel like that would just be something that would make people feel better. And like some could argue, oh, but is that technically a solution to the royalties or whatever? Dude, it's all about how we feel about it. Because at the end of the day, like that's one of the reasons why people bitch is because, yes, if I sell, D-Gods was one of the big catalysts for this, right? And big part of it was because the royalties were at, whatever, they were 9.9 or whatever, 10% basically. And so if you sold a D-God at 600 Sol, you got 540 back, right?
Yep.
Yeah. If I listed at 600 and I check my wallet and there's 540 in there, like, yeah, that hurts, right?
Yeah.
So you don't notice it as much when you're flipping an NFT for 1.2 Sol and whatever, but the big thing I think is, once again, it's just the experience. If somebody lists a DGOT at 600 Sol, but the buyer sees it at 660, it just makes it that much easier to not think about the royalty percentage. So I'm very bullish on royalties. I think they're very important, but I do feel like we need to find a way to bury the cost a little bit more. And I do believe it should show up on the buyer's aspect and not the seller. And the reason why I say that is because the seller's leaving the project.
Right.
The buyer should know you're paying a buyer's premium to get that item. And so it's the same reason why when I sell something on eBay, the buyer pays for shipping, and the buyer pays taxes. Like, so it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, we're used to these things. It's not like this is like some foreign concept.
Right.
The buyer, in my opinion, should pay those things. But once again, just give them a better UI experience and they're going to complain less about it, and the seller's going to feel like they were made whole. So that's my 2 cents on that. Probably going to clip that, post on Twitter, see what people's thoughts are. But yeah.
It raises a good point, right? Or 2 points, I think. One is like perception is reality, right? And so it's like if you perceive that you're going to get 100 Sol for that sale and you get 80, then you feel it feels bad, man, right? But then on the other side, it's like where somebody has to your point, somebody has to bear that cost, right? And so should it be the person that's exiting the project, or should it be the person that's coming into the project? And I've seen arguments on both sides. I think if you look at the examples that you've given, then it's pretty clear that like there are certain costs that are borne by the buyer, right? The shipping, and there are certain costs like that are borne by the seller. Like if you take, say like through PayPal, whether it's goods and services or friends and family, right? Somebody is paying that fee somewhere. And so I do think that it's just like an educational thing, like a perception thing. And I think there's absolutely something to that.
Yeah, and I think too, even taking like another real world example of if you go to a restaurant right now versus 2 years ago, I guarantee that restaurant is more expensive than it was 2 years ago. The cost of goods have gone up, inflation has gone up, so the cost of keeping an employee has gone up, and so they don't look at it and go, okay, we're just going to throw like, hey, Mark, this sandwich was $20. And then they just say, but it's also an additional this on top of it. They just give you a price and you pay that.
That's right.
So I go back to it. Just bake it in. Don't tell people. Because if you told this is once again, how people perceive things. If somebody said to me, okay, this steak that you're buying, Mark, is $50, right? Okay, I know I'm spending $50. That's fine, right? But if you tell somebody, the stake is $40, but because of inflation and because of the cost of goods are up,
Right.
now it's $50. Now people, that's when people get pissed. They don't want to know it's 40 plus 10. They just want to know it's 50. But if you tell them it's 40 and then we're adding 10 for the other shit, they just get irritated because of that. And so it's literally a perception thing more than, to me, I think it's literally a perception thing more than it is anything else. And I feel like if we just bake it in, then like people don't have to see it. And if they don't have to see it, they don't care about it as much.
Dude, I mean 100%. And like look no further than like if you take credit card payments, like you're paying a processing fee, right? Like you're not, and most you can't really they're not passing that through to the buyer necessarily, but it's just setting the right expectations. And I think to this point, like what I think is really important though too is that like on some of the secondary markets, like it's a promotional period of their fees that are being waived, right? But it's not promotional period of royalties being waived. And I think that that's like a bit broken because like to your point, I agree. I think royalties are critical to projects. And I think I would like to have a conversation and be able to enforce these things more at the protocol level so that there isn't so much like anybody should be able to do whatever they want. But we also don't want to get into a scenario where like personally, we're not taking away features from people that don't pay royalties for Sentries. I don't even know if anybody's paying royalties for Sentries, but like, cause that's not what my business is. I can't enforce that. Right. And so now you're asking me as a founder to do another job on top of the already difficult job of building this business. And so like, that's not a game that I want to play either.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So, okay, so to wrap this up, just a few more questions. So do you guys have any other revenue streams that are planned down the road, things that you guys want to implement as time goes on? Any big brain ideas that you guys are coming up with?
Yeah. So this is actually a great opportunity for us to talk about the recent partnership with Jitto Labs. So Jitto is a company that is basically, they've created a different, like a fork of the Solana blockchain, and it's like more optimized. Like it's like the source code of Solana is very buggy because technically, I know it's funny to think about, but like Solana's in beta, right? And so like when at like full release, we're supposed to see, I don't know, tens of thousands of transactions per second, whereas we're around 3,000 or 4,000 right now. And all of the time, this is kind of what happens. Like when we had the halt recently, like what happened was, it doesn't matter, like what happened shouldn't have happened, but there was some bugginess in the source code. And so you've got Jitto Labs, and they've created a better, like a faster, more optimized version of the source code. And then they selected 20 partners, Sentries was one of them, to run the source code on the validator. And why this matters is this, what's called this concept of maximum extractable value, or MEV. And so right now, whenever you pay a small transaction fee when you mint an NFT, let's say, right? 50% of that goes to the validator, 50% gets burned. In the new Jitto client, 100% of that goes to the validator. But so it's not just a tip, right? And so what it means is that folks that run validators are going to be able to make higher returns, get a larger percentage of the transaction fees. And by the way, it's not about the 0.00123 SOL that you pay. It's 0.00123 times a million transactions a day that you're participating in the validation of. And so to be one of the 20 projects, like, and this isn't NFT projects, this is like Solana blockchain projects. So like we're one of 20, and it's a big deal for us. And it's a big deal for our holders, especially our holders that are staking in our validator, which is participating in this and capturing that MEV. And just overall, the more nodes that we have, whether it's managed nodes, like when I think about our business with our CTO 0x now, like our North Stars for our business is how many transactions are being processed through Sentries RPC nodes, and how much Solana do we have staked in the validators that we're servicing, right? And so like everything that we do should be going towards increasing both of those numbers, because then that just goes right back to the holders. And so that's the Solana focus. But then as I mentioned, like any network blockchain that's working on proof of stake needs validators. We can run validators on Sui, on Aptos, on Ethereum, on blockchain XYZ that hasn't even come out with. And so like Solana is our home. I love Solana for many, many different reasons, but we're not maxis, right? And so we will continue to take advantage, and we're going to be an infrastructure company. We're going to hand out the picks and shovels to businesses and developers that want to build cool ass shit. And that's what we're going to do, whether it's on Solana or somewhere else. And that's how we're just going to keep growing the pie.
Love that. Love that. So, okay. So just last few questions. One of the questions from the community is, where can we get the t-shirt?
So we posted this morning. It is November the 4th. We did a small run of t-shirts, Sentries t-shirts for Breakpoint. And it's gone really well. It wasn't a huge addition. So we definitely want people out there repping Sentries. And we think that like there's some cool opportunities. So whether it's a t-shirt or whether it's other merch, definitely something that is on the roadmap. So you can't get that t-shirt right now, but you never know when we'll have a drop for the community.
There we go. And then last question, feel free to drop some alpha. This is for your holders, for anybody who's looking to buy into Sentries. Can you give them a little bit of what to expect in the next 3 to 6 months? Any roadmap items you're excited about? Anything that you want to mention?
Yes. I got to grab a note real quick because I don't want to fucking forget everything.
I respect that.
There's so many. But anyway, look, so first things first, like we're going to continue to improve the staking UI so that like, I don't want to answer the question of how much each individual person is earning for the Sentries that they have staked. So you're going to be able to go to our website and check that out. There's two versions there, or two updates there that are coming very soon. And then in the future, look, this is highly volatile, but we're building XNFT backpack integrations for the Sentries community because mobile is the future, right? That's where we're going. And so we want you to be able to participate in all of the things that we have through this system, right? And through the XNFT protocol. So we're building there. We're going to, I mentioned the custom MEV client through Jitto. We got V3 of our staking site will be in 2023. That'll introduce gamification, probably some metadata, like being able to actually change the metadata, upgrade the art. And, initially we had a lot of other cool gamification elements as it pertained to like arbitrage opportunities with NFTs. But given the market conditions, we had to lower the mint price. We lowered the supply a little bit, but like those ideas are still really viable. So ideas like power blocks that our holders know, load links, burning, fusing blocks, and being able to just capture more of the value from the validator and or the nodes is through NFTs, through additional NFTs. Not that we're going to mint a second collection, but hey, maybe if you're doing certain things, there will be airdrops, or there will be you'll get some things that other people won't. And so it's so variable. And like I said at the beginning, like I want to be able to adapt to the market, to the sentiment, and to the trends. Because at the end of the day, all of this stuff is like, it's nice, it's icing to the underlying infrastructure play, right? Because you want to hold Sentries because we're going to be one of the top providers of nodes and validators in the Solana ecosystem and beyond. And then also, in order to make sure that we feel good, that we build this community strong, we're going to have these other incentives. But like, this is like, invest in the Pacific Northwest Railroad, not for like what's in the dining car, but like because it's going to change the fucking world.
That's dope. I like that. I'm jacked up. I'm excited for what you guys are doing. So to wrap this up, can you drop your socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So Sentries_Soul on Twitter is the main account. Check me out personally. I'm Divide. There's a bunch of underscores in my name, so we'll just link it in
it'll be in the description.
Yeah. Just scroll down a little bit, and then discord.gg/Sentries, and hop in there. We got all the information that you could ever want, and we got a great team of moderators. Shout out to AAAA, shout out to Blockberry, shout out to Bird, shout out to Kevin, and all of the people that are holding it down for us there. And I'm so proud of like the folks in this team that we've put together. And so like I can't wait to have more people come in and learn about what we're building.
That's cool, man. Hey, I really respect what you guys are building. I can tell how passionate you are, and that's something that I just love to see. You know, this is the favorite part of my job is getting to meet all these different people who fly out here from all over and getting to hear them talk about their project, what they're building, what they're doing, and the excitement behind it. Like, that's the sort of shit that makes me feel good about, you know, this whole space and just makes me enjoy, you know, everything that we're doing. So I just want to say I appreciate you coming out here. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to, you know, having you back on at some point and continually talking about the you know, the path of Sentries and everything you guys do with it. So
Yo, thank you so much, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in right now, and shout out to everybody that's building on Solana blockchain. Much love.
there we go. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. This has been fun. See you
Peace.
guys.